Well, let's start with the question. What is one thing you would do if you knew you couldn't fail? It's not about trying to fail. It's about being willing to fail. On today's episode, we're talking about chasing failure. Well, what is up? Welcome to the Brian Wood Leadership Podcast, where we give you the confidence to lead well. This is episode number 8, and we are calling this show Chasing Failure. On our previous episode, I gave you my top 6 books in regards to leadership for 2022, and we are releasing content for the next 6 weeks every Monday on each of those books. And so we're going to break those down, not necessarily a book review, but basically pulling out some leadership principles that I think will be fitting to our audience. And so I hope that you'll find value in it. I'm going to give you challenge questions throughout each episode in regards to what we're talking about, as I usually do. But I also want to share a couple of things with you up front. Number one, I am not one who likes to steal people's content and attempt to make it my own, meaning I'm not taking credit for this. I'm going to give credit and honor where it's due. And so the author of this book, Chasing Failure, is a guy by the name of Ryan Leake. And so great leader, great pastor from what I know of him from afar. And so give him a follow, give him a like on social media, whatever you feel like you need to do. But I'm going to take some of his writings from his book and then bring it into our world on this show and give you some personal stories to attach it and then hopefully challenge you in regards to chasing failure. Lastly, before we jump in, as always, I would love, it would mean so much if you would share this show, like our page, follow it. If you're on YouTube, we would love for you to subscribe, leave comments, leave a review on our podcast platforms. Any of those engagement, interaction, anything that we can do helps us gain traction and helps us give more leaders the confidence to lead well. And so it would mean so much to me if you would do that. And so you guys ready? Let's jump in today. I'm excited. This book I read over the summer, and it might have been my number one book for 2022. But I want to give you 3 things today. Again, application, challenge throughout, and then we'll wrap this up in normal time. And so number one, as we talk about chasing failure, I believe we are the thing that keeps us in leadership from moving forward to the next level is fear of failure. We don't want to chase failure. We are afraid of it, whether you want to use that term or not, whether you want to admit it, believe it, accept it. So much of our lives are pushed away because we are afraid of failure. If I had to list a couple things or made a list of a handful of things that I believe keeps leaders from making it to the next level, to growing, to stepping into the next chapter of their leadership pipeline, growth, trajectory, whatever word you want to use there, I would have to say in my top 3 would be this: that we are afraid of failure. And I believe there are several reasons behind this and why this happens, but I believe one of the major ones is because of the society that we live in. There's this stigma in our society, especially in our social media driven highlight reel world that we live in, that we have to have everything all together and that mistakes cannot be made. And if it is, it definitely better not be visible and exposed and revealed to anybody else. Like, that's the stigma that we live in. You have to always be right. You have to always have it together. And in every capacity of your leadership, there can be no hint of failure. Listen, that is so far from the truth. It is so far away from what we need to be doing in regards to growing and pushing forward in our leadership. If we could get past that stigma that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be right, and every decision that you make, every hire that you have, every fire that you have, every organizational paradigm shift, if we always got it right, we would not be able to learn what we can learn and do learn when we don't. And so we cannot have this fear of failure if we want to excel and grow in our leadership development. As a church planner, this lurked in my life for years. I knew years ago that I wanted to plant a church one day, but there were so many doubts and fears that consumed and inundated every aspect of my life. I was afraid to fail. What if people don't come? What if people don't like the church that I pastor? What if someone comes and then leaves a bad review or starts talking bad about our church and never comes back? How do I navigate through the business side of an organization? Where will we get enough money to pay bills? Where will we find a building? Like, I could go on and on with all of these questions that aren't necessarily bad, but they become bad when fear is the driving factor that's wrapped up into each of those questions. And I believe that God's timing is perfect, but I also believe that I would have stepped out sooner to plant a church if I would not have been so afraid to fail. But here's what I've learned. Our church is almost 2 years old, and I have learned more through my failure than I have, honestly, through my success. And I can tell you how many times I've failed. You want to take a guess over the last 2 years how many specific times I've had failure in my leadership? What do you think? Well, there's too many to count, and I've failed in many things, and each of those failures it's shaped me, it's matured me, it's taught me, and it's led me into a different level of leadership. Not that I've arrived, not that I'm not going to make a mistake again, but I learned so much by pushing away the fear of failure and actually chasing it and being willing to step into something, knowing that I might fail. And when I do fail, I take that, I learn from it, I look at that experience. What could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? What happened? And you take all of that information and that data from the experience and you grow from it. Like, we will never grow if we always get everything right, because you learn things when you make the wrong decision. And so we cannot be afraid to fail. I love what Ryan says in his book. He says, failure is more about who you are becoming than what you are achieving. Let me say that again. Failure is more about who you are becoming than what you are achieving. Again, our society is this fast-paced, look at the moment in this very second, what's happening, and we miss out on the big picture of where we're actually heading. And if we can get that mindset, that mind shift to look ahead to the future, then we focus on where we're headed and who we're becoming rather than what is actually happening in that moment. And so your challenge question for this point is, what is it that you know or at least think you should be doing in your leadership but haven't because the fear of failure is shutting you down? What is that one thing, whether it's a decision, whether it's something that you need to do within your culture, your values, your vision, whatever it may be. What is that one thing or two things or multiple things that you know you think you should be doing, but you're choosing not to because you are so afraid to fail and it is shutting you down? We can't have a fear of failure and chase failure at the same time. We have to understand that the fear of failure will hold you back in your leadership. All right. Number 2, never give up. Never give up. You've heard that statement before, right? Is it true? Is it true? That's a tough one because I've heard that statement all the time. I've said that statement all the time. And I believe that it depends on the context of how you're viewing your situation and what's actually happening, whether or not that statement is absolutely true or not. And here's what I mean. I would say never give up in regards to life, in regards to becoming a better leader, in regards to pursuing your calling, the purpose that God has for your life. Never give up on being the best spouse that you can be, the best parent that you can be, whatever it may be, like those big non-negotiable things in life. Never give up on those. But I believe that there are things in life that you do just need to move on from, that you just give up on and understand that it's not from you. And that's hard. It's really hard to do because we have dreams and we have goals, but then there's life, right? We have dreams, we have goals, and then there's life. We want to pursue those goals. We want to pursue those dreams, but not without doing some evaluation and some analysis of what's actually happening in that situation, because some things that you have been chasing or maybe failed at over and over is possibly something that is worth moving on from and giving up and going to the next chapter of what is in front of you. Let me explain. I'll give you kind of a humorous but very true personal story of mine in regards to giving up and moving on. There was a time in my life right out of high school into college where I would call that season, if I had to identify myself, as a fake cowboy. I wanted to be a cowboy so bad. Like I wanted to ride bulls. I wanted to have horses. I wanted to have all this land and just be some big time farmer and just live like like a hippie or a nomad on my own little property out there. And I did so to the best of my ability. However, I lived at home with my parents. They didn't care too much for animals, and they sure were not about to let me have a farm on their property. So I did what I could do. I had a friend who did have some property who would allow me to have some animals. So I went and bought a horse, and her name was Katie. And I kept that horse at my friend's house. And then I went down to a practice bull riding. I paid $5 and I got on the back of a bull for the first time. And I was hooked. And I just knew that this was my destiny. I was going to be a professional cowboy, professional bull rider. I was going to be the number one nationally ranked bull rider in the country. Like, this was what I was born to do. And I put everything in my life into chasing this. I'm talking about the whole get up: cowboy hat, tight jeans before skinny jeans were a thing, big old belt buckle, can of dip in my back pocket, boots, sleeveless shirt, like flannels. Like, I went the whole part, man. And I was going to be this massive cowboy. And I chased this for like 3 or 4 years. And I finally realized, bro, this is never going to happen. Like, this is not for me. This is not my purpose. This is not my calling. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. You are putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into something that is not for you. And so I sold my horse for $50, and I sold about $2,000 worth of bull riding equipment for $150, and I never looked back. Like, I said, all right, this is it. I give up. I quit. I'm moving on from this. Here's what I want you to hear. You're probably laughing by now, and I hope that you are. But Ryan talks a lot in this book about the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is in the center, and then there's 4 arms that come off of that. And those 4 arms are passion, purpose, opportunity, and skill set. And when all of those collide, you get into your sweet spot. And when you do that, when you have something in your life that maybe you're afraid to chase, because you're scared of failure, you have this fear, but you have all of those arms connected and it's right in your sweet spot. Man, you need to chase the heck out of that dream. You need to chase the heck out of that goal. You need to chase that decision, whatever you're trying to do in your organization or in your leadership. But when 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of those is off, maybe you have the passion, but no opportunities are there. Maybe you have opportunities and passion, but you just don't have the skill set. That was me in bull riding. Like, I could stay on for a couple of seconds, but I never could make it to 8. But we have to analyze, and we have to look at, is this for me? Is all of these things colliding? Or is it time for me to say, all right, maybe this isn't for me, and I need to give up on this so that I can look ahead and see what actually is for me? That's how you grow in your leadership, is to be in that sweet spot. It doesn't mean that we only lead from a level of comfortability. Like, there are things that are uncomfortable. If you want to chase failure, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. However, if those things don't collide, you have to make sure that you are in your sweet spot and then pursue it. So never give up is not necessarily an absolute truth in every situation. So here's your challenge question. Actually, 2 of them. Is there something you've tried over and over and you realize maybe it's time to move on? Maybe it's something that you keep failing at and you have been chasing failure, but nothing seems to be happening. Have you taken inventory? Have you analyzed? Have you really looked to assess, is this really for me? And if it is for me, is it for now? Because some things in life are meant for you, but not in this season. And so is there something you've tried over and over, realize maybe you should move on or give up? And then number two, is there something that you have tried to move on from? Maybe you've tried it, you failed once, and you said, all right, that's not for me, I'm moving on, but it continues to stay in your heart and in your mind, and you can't get away from it, and you need to start chasing that thing again. You need to start stepping out, not being afraid to fail in whatever that is, and begin to pursue that with no fear of failure, stepping into that so that it can shape you, grow you, and you can learn how to be a better version of you in your leadership. So we can't have a fear of failure. Some things we don't give up on, and other things we need to move on from. And number three, the last one, you got to stop procrastinating. Stop procrastinating. Ryan has a chapter in his book, and he titled it this: Don't wait until Monday. What he's really saying is stop waiting. Stop procrastinating. Get out there, chase it, make that decision, pursue it, do whatever it is, and do it today. Every time we put off until tomorrow, we miss out on what we can pull off today. Let me say it again. Every time we put off until tomorrow, we miss out on what we can pull off today. Take that dream, that goal, that decision, and write it down. Put some strategy behind it. Make that phone call today. Send that email today. Set up that meeting today, and take the first step. You cannot continue to just sit back and wait on things to happen, because they're not going to. I say this often in my own life: if you wait until everything is perfect, you'll be waiting to the grave. Like, nothing is in life is ever going to be perfect. If you're waiting for everything to be perfect before you have kids, if you're waiting for everything to be perfect before you have a marriage, if you're waiting on everything to be perfect before you apply for that new job, like, life is not perfect, and it never will be. And if you keep waiting on everything to line up, you're going to wait all the way to the grave. Again, it doesn't mean that you make dumb choices and you just jump off the cliff and say, I hope this works out. We got to have strategy. We got to analyze. We got to make wise choices in regards to where we are in life and financial decisions and all of those things that go along with that. So don't hear me say, yeah, let's just take off and jump off the cliff without a parachute and maybe one will open up, right? Like, we're using wisdom here, but at the same time, wisdom also means that you don't just sit back and procrastinate and just wait on everything to happen and fall in your lap. You got to take action. You got to take a step. You got to move forward, and don't be afraid to fail. Here's the challenge question for that, and we'll wrap it up. What action steps can you take today, right now? Like, what action steps can you take? That thing you've been thinking about, the thing that you want to do, but you're scared of, the decision you need to make in your organization, but you're not sure how it's going to pan out. What action steps can you take right now in this moment? Family, let's not allow fear of failure to stop us from reaching our potential and the next level of leadership that we can get to. Let's assess, let's analyze, and let's figure out what we need to do to keep pursuing and what we need to do to move on from things that aren't for us. And let's start now. We cannot be afraid of failure. Failure is not fun all the time, but it will lead you to a place that you will never get to if you do not take that step. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't procrastinate. Figure out, what do I chase? What do I give up? And let's go be the best leaders that we can. I hope you found value in this. I hope you have confidence to lead well. I'm honored you would take time to listen to this. If it added value to you, share it with somebody else. We appreciate all that you guys do in your level and capacity and environments of leadership. I love and appreciate you guys. We'll see you next Monday, book number 2. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you soon.